yeah, I think it's time to talk about guitar solos, especially the ones that I wrote to the song Ahead of the Storm. So what made that song so much different was the fact that I ended up writing 3 guitar solos to one song. I know it's a lot of notes that needs to be played on that song, but it all made sense once I finished the song. So here's the whole journey of those solos and how I ended up writing them.
I feel like it requires a more like a shreddier solo as an outro, as an intro. I mean. Okay, I feel like this is what I'm like able to make today.
So everything started with the intro solo actually, and it was really interesting part of the process because I wrote it in the first live stream. The live stream itself was really intense because I wrote everything. I think it was up to the first chorus of the song. It was around the end of the live stream, around 2-hour mark, once I started to work on the intro solo. I did approach it first by using a really melodic approach. And by that I mean like having something that is like a really simple singable melody. Like the Savior intro is a really good example of melody like that. A chorus type of melody that hooks up to listen to that song and sets the mood to it as well. That approach didn't really work well. So what I did was to actually approach it a complete different way. I noticed from that stream after watching it years later that I tried to use it with like the traditional like high gain tone, but once I switched to this wah effect here, I ended up using the first solo that I recorded with that. It's actually quite insane to think now, like afterwards, that it was like the first take that I ever did with that effect, and it's the one that ended up being in the song. It's rarely like that with my solos, but here it worked really well. The first solo was something that I tried to approach multiple different ways later on, but I never really managed to capture the type of attitude that I had there. I think there was some kind of like frustration, and just the way how I played was something that I didn't manage to capture again. So after trying it a few times, I just gave up and let it be there and then record it again if I have any further ideas. But once the time passed, the solo really started to grow on me, and that's why I didn't want to replace it anymore. So that's basically how I got it. I think I just was thinking about like using a really shreddy type of solo, like in your face type of attitude there, and that seemed to work really well. Then when it comes to the second solo, I worked on it a lot. I have a lot of like different takes that I have posted on Instagram. Here is an example of one. So I didn't feel like that worked, or the core idea of that, but I always tried to find out something that worked and then used it on the next attempt to play that solo. Usually I approach solos by just improvising over and then seeing what really works well. So what I do is I record and improvise and see what I really like, and then start to build up from there. With this song, it was a really long process because it was last March when I decided to then work again on this song and just write that solo, finish it. So I used the Neural DSP 14 Kali suite. If you are more interested about the gear that I used, check out the previous video that I have posted here on my YouTube channel. There's more in-depth information about the production of that song. And there you can get more information about how I recorded everything. But with this solo, I tried to keep it really melodic, and I got some influences from all the Gods of Asgard songs from Alan Wake 2 that were then like influenced by my own influences. So it's like there's a little bit of like Yngwie Malmsteen and Steve Vai influences in those all the Gods of Asgard songs, and it felt so natural to then use the influences and things that I learned once I was learning the old Gods of Asgard covers. So what I ended up doing was working on the solo in a way that it's like starts in a really melodic way and use a little bit of hybrid picking. Then there's a really shreddy alternate picking line. And the reason why I added that was because I'm a huge fan of that technique nowadays. It's not my like huge strength at the moment, or I don't feel like it being like that way. But the way how I worked on that technique was that I just started to write and use a lot of it. And for some reason, I managed to record a really nice solo with that technique, especially here in this song. So there's that, and then the sweeping was something that I was thinking about, like really going crazy with that technique. So I think there's like a lot of something like that. I still have to work on that a lot in order to like really nail that solo months later and like really watch the solo in slow motion or like really low speed so I can see what I was actually doing there. But other than that, there's that, and then some Steve Vai type of pedal notes type of tapping technique, which again ties all those three solos together. And then what else did I choose here? This is also in different key. It's in B minor. And then besides the key change here, I wanted to have like a halftime part here as a tool to really like release the tension that this like shreddy type of part was building up towards, and then have harmonized guitars in that section too, and finish with a tapping technique as well. And that was my way to just make sure that the solo works. That ending was partly improvised, and I remember that I tried to work on it afterwards, but I didn't come up with a better solution, so I left it there. Now once I'm relearning that solo, it makes a lot more sense to end it there, because then I can just easily move to playing chords in the chorus if I do like the singing and playing approach to this song in live situation. So it was a really good choice there. So overall, that's kind of the way how I approached the middle solo. I think it complements the song in that part of the song and the way how I performed it. I had other ideas of like having like a pre-solo before that, where I have like an instrumental part where guitar has this little line thing going on, but yeah, it didn't make any sense to start the solo there. So that's the type of approach that I end up choosing for the middle solo, which is, I think, the main solo of the song. Then for the outro, the guitar still did this type of thing. Once I was having another round of like having the feedback of the song, I remember having a little bit discussion about having my early guitar influences there, and it was the song Delicious by Poets of the Fall that was having this like really intense type of lead guitar going on towards the end of the song, and I think it's just ends something like just having this screaming guitar. Something like that, and then having a little bit of feedback and like having this really screaming guitar. But I didn't manage to capture that way. It worked really fine to this point, like having this. But after that, I was running out of ideas. I started to experiment different ways to phrase these things, and I kind of like developed a slightly different way of using the whammy bar. So what I did was like having a bend downwards with a whammy bar, so it sounds like this. So the whole thing with like the rhythm. And this actually ended up being like the hardest part of the solo. Then once I was figuring out what to do after that, I remember thinking, what would Steve Vai do? So of course I decided to use a Steve Vai type of ending and resolve the whole song to a major chord, because the whole thing is kind of really minor key driven song. I think the whole song is kind of in a B minor, and it goes kind of to the C major, but have some influences from C minor. Then the solo is in B minor and so on. So what I thought was to have E major as the ending chord here. The chord progression before the ending goes like this. So it made a lot of sense to end it with the E major chord and keep the tonality around that. So in order to finish the song in E major, I decided to really use that Steve Vai type of approach, which is again sounding like this. And hitting those harmonics was another challenge here. So it took a lot of effort to really nail down that solo. So that was the biggest challenge here with this part. That stadium ending made a lot of sense, because if I want to play it live later on, I can just expand it as much as possible if I feel like doing so. So that's another way of thinking how to approach this song. So I have to admit that it's a really nice thing to notice afterwards that adding those 3 guitar solos to one song, it worked. So it was a lot of problem solving, but I think the thing that matters the most is that I'm happy with that solution, and that's what I am. So yeah, basically the solos are done that way. But I have to admit, like, all the guitar territory influences are from my early influences that made me start playing guitar. So there is a lot of like the Olli Tukiainen type and Poets of the Fall type of guitar playing. There is Mark Tremonti type of rhythm guitars, and I think, yeah, the Yngwie style, which is towards the old gods of Asgard, and I think a little bit of Trivium as well with that main riff, because isn't that like one of the Trivium songs? So I think that's a really nice way to do it. So here are all the 3 guitar solos. I'm super excited to hear what is your favorite solo. Let me know in the comments. It's 1 week until the release of this song, so make sure to pre-save it from the link below, and hopefully see you on the next one. And thanks a lot for watching. See you out there. Bye.